In a small, dusty town on the edge of the wild frontier, a sense of foreboding hung in the air. Mary, a young widow, stood by the window of her modest cabin, staring out at the setting sun. Its glowing orange rays did little to warm her heart, which felt heavy with loss. Just a few months ago, she had shared this home with her husband, Thomas, who had been the light of her life. He was a kind man, always ready to lend a hand to those in need, and his sudden passing from a tragic accident had left a void that seemed impossible to fill. Now, Mary was alone, facing not just her grief but a terrible threat that loomed over her small community. Whispers of a ruthless gang of outlaws had spread like wildfire. They wreaked havoc across the land, stealing from settlers and threatening anyone who dared to stand in their way. The townsfolk lived in constant fear, and Mary knew she couldn't wait for help that might never come. Her heart raced as she remembered the stories of the gang's cruel acts. As night approached, Mary gathered the few belongings she could carry, a worn blanket, some food for her journey, and her husband's treasured compass. She looked around the cabin one last time, memories flooding her mind, the laughter they shared, the dreams they had for their future. With tears in her eyes, she stepped outside into the cool evening air, feeling a mix of determination and dread. She mounted Daisy, her faithful horse, who seemed to sense Mary's urgency. With a gentle nudge, Mary urged Daisy onward. They rode away from the familiar comforts of home and into the unknown wilderness ahead. The rustling leaves and hooting owls echoed through the trees as they traveled deeper into the forest. Despite the danger, Mary felt a flicker of hope burn inside her. She knew she had to find safety, not just for herself but also for Thomas's memory. With every mile they covered, she focused on survival and the promise of freedom that lay beyond the mountains. Little did she know that her desperate journey would soon lead her to an unexpected ally who would change everything. As Mary rode deeper into the wilderness, the weight of her situation pressed heavily on her heart. The rumors about the outlaws swirled around the town like a summer storm, filling everyone with dread. The gang, notorious for their violent raids, had struck multiple settlements nearby and left chaos in their wake. Settlers spoke in hushed tones about the brutal attacks, sharing tales that made even the bravest tremble. They stole livestock, burned homes, and instilled fear into anyone who crossed their path. Mary couldn't shake the images of those terrified families from her mind. She remembered how the kind baker, Mr. Thompson, had recounted how the gang had taken everything from him and left him with nothing but ash and memories. Each story served as a grim reminder that danger was not just lurking, it was very real and could come for her at any moment. With Daisy trotting steadily beneath her, Mary's resolve grew stronger. She knew she had to keep moving, but uncertainty gnawed at her thoughts. Would she find safety? Or would she become another victim of the merciless outlaws? Each rustle of leaves felt amplified in the eerie stillness of the forest. Her heart raced as she glanced around, half expecting to see a group of rough-looking men emerge from the shadows. Mary's surroundings shifted from open fields to thick woods as night began to fall. The towering trees loomed above her like silent guardians, but also felt like potential hiding spots for danger. She strained to listen for any signs of trouble. A distant laugh or a low murmur might signal that she was not alone. The thought sent shivers down her spine. The thought of returning to town crossed her mind fleetingly, but she quickly dismissed it. The very reason she fled was to escape the grip of fear and find freedom from the threat that loomed like a dark cloud over her life. Deep down, she hoped desperately that help would come her way before she faced any direct confrontation with those who threatened her hard-won sanctuary. Encouraged by the loyalty and strength of Daisy beneath her, Mary pressed on through the gathering darkness, keeping one eye on the path ahead and another on the shadows that danced in the corners of her vision. Time was running out, she needed to find safety before it was too late. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows through the trees, Mary felt a stirring deep inside her, a mix of fear and fierce determination. The decision to leave her home had not come easily. She recalled the sweet memories of laughter and warmth that once filled the cabin she now fled from. But every family she remembered had turned into tales of horror, warning her of the impending danger. With trembling hands, she had gathered only what was necessary for her journey. A woolen blanket would shield her from the night chill, and a small pouch filled with dried meat and hardtack would sustain her through the long days ahead. In a world where every possession could be a burden or a blessing, she swiftly chose what mattered most, a compass that once belonged to Thomas, her husband. It was their guide through life's uncertainties, and it now served as a symbol of hope. Mary's most prized companion was Daisy, her sturdy mare with a gentle disposition. From the moment they met, it was as if they understood each other perfectly. Daisy had stood by Mary's side during good times and bad. Now, as Mary mounted her horse, she felt a wave of reassurance wash over her as Daisy flicked her ears back and forth, demonstrating loyalty even in uncertainty. With one last glance at the cabin, its walls echoing with memories, Mary urged Daisy forward into the wilderness. As they rode along the narrow trail, wildflowers brushed against Daisy's flanks like whispers urging them on. The wind carried the scent of pine and earthy soil, wrapping around Mary like an old friend promising adventure beyond fear. Every step took them farther away from the horrors of town and closer to an unknown future. Yet with each heartbeat, Mary knew this journey was essential. Bringing freedom from the grip of fear would ultimately lead to peace, even if she didn't fully understand how just yet. As darkness began to cloak the forest, Mary steered Daisy cautiously through rough patches of ground and over fallen branches. This was more than escape, it was an act of courage for herself and for Thomas's memory. With resolve like never before blooming in her chest, she pressed onward into whatever lay beyond. Each mile carved a new beginning away from fear and toward safety, her heart beating steadily alongside Daisy's rhythmic hoofbeats under the stars above. The journey through the rugged mountains tested Mary's resolve at every turn. As she and Daisy climbed higher, the trail grew steeper and less forgiving. Jagged rocks jutted out from the earth, and the narrow path seemed to disappear into the dense thickets of pine trees that surrounded them. Each step felt like a battle against the elements, but Mary's determination burned bright. With each surge in elevation, the air became thinner and cooler, a chill whispering against her skin. The shadows danced ominously between the trees as sunlight faded, and an eerie silence settled over the landscape. Occasionally, a distant sound, a crack of twigs or a rustle in the underbrush, would prick her ears, heightening her anxieties about the outlaws she was fleeing. Yet, with Daisy's steady gait beneath her, she remained focused on putting distance between herself and the life she had left behind. As night began to cloister around them, Mary stumbled upon a small clearing. She dismounted to rest, allowing Daisy to graze on the sparse patches of grass that dared to grow among the rocks. Mary took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside her heart. Beads of perspiration dotted her forehead from both exertion and fear, but she refused to let hopelessness creep in. Her mind drifted back to Thomas and their dreams for a peaceful life together. She imagined him beside her, encouraging her to keep moving forward, pushing her to be brave even when faced with uncertainty. Holding the compass tightly in her hand reminded her that even if the path ahead was unclear, she was still navigating her own destiny. After a brief rest, Mary remounted Daisy, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. As they traversed through thick underbrush and crossed chilling streams, she found strength in each challenge she faced. The rocks might bruise her legs when they wobbled underfoot, but she worked through it, every stumble only made her more resolute. The wilderness was beautiful yet daunting, and despite her fear, it sparked something powerful within her, an understanding that fear would not dictate her future. With each step they took towards safety, she felt her spirit soar higher. This journey was not just about fleeing, it was about reclaiming the courage that had always been part of her, and she would hold on to it tightly as they ventured further into the unknown woods beyond. As Mary and Daisy pressed further into the wilds, a figure emerged from the heart of the forest, a rugged mountain man named Jack. He was a sight to behold, with a weathered face that told tales of countless seasons spent alone among the trees. A long beard flecked with grey framed his chiseled jaw, and his eyes sparkled with the fierce intelligence of one who understood the ways of the wilderness. Jack had chosen a life far removed from civilized society, preferring the company of nature over people. He was a master of survival, skilled in tracking animals, starting fires under the harshest conditions, and finding food where others would see only desolation. Legends danced around his name, stories of bravery and strength that whispered through taverns and towns alike. Many said he could tame a wild stallion just by looking into its eyes. On this day, Jack had been out gathering supplies when he caught sight of Mary and Daisy navigating through the rocky terrain. Curiosity piqued, he observed from a distance, noting her determination as she pressed on despite the weight of her grief. He sensed that she was fleeing something dark and dangerous, just as he had done many years ago when he had left a life full of heartbreak behind. As Mary made her way through an especially tangled area, she stumbled, nearly losing her balance in the thick underbrush. Jack instinctively moved closer to offer aid but held back, allowing her to find her footing on her own. He admired her grit. There was a fire in her spirit that reminded him of his own struggles. Despite his solitary life, Jack felt an odd sense of responsibility for this brave woman navigating through such peril. He decided it was time to make himself known. Stepping from behind a towering pine tree, he called out gently but firmly, "Hello there. You're not alone anymore." Mary whirled around in surprise, her heart racing at the sound of his voice. She sized him up quickly, his rugged clothes blending perfectly with the forest around him. Could he be trusted? Yet there was something about the way he held himself that spoke of courage and honesty. At that moment, fate began to weave their paths together. Jack's presence promised hope in a world filled with danger. Unsure but intrigued, Mary took a cautious step toward him, ready to hear what assistance he might offer in her desperate journey for safety. As Jack observed Mary from the edge of the forest, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The way she navigated the rocky terrain, her shoulders tense and her gaze darting around, suggested she was not just on an ordinary journey. It was clear she was fleeing from something, and that instinct drove him to pay closer attention. The sun had dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the ground as Mary maneuvered through a thicket of trees. Suddenly, she stumbled over a gnarled root, nearly toppling off Daisy. Jack's heart raced at the sight. She was alone and vulnerable in this vast wilderness. He could almost feel the weight of her fear from where he stood. He recalled the tales he had heard about the outlaws terrorizing nearby settlements and realized that Mary could be one of their next victims. The thought ignited a fire in Jack's chest. He couldn't let that happen. With swift resolve, he decided to follow her trail quietly, staying hidden among the trees while keeping a safe distance. He was well aware of how to track without being detected. The wilderness was his home, and he moved like a shadow through it. As he followed her path, Jack noted every detail, the way she brushed aside branches with urgency and how Daisy occasionally neighed softly as if sensing danger. Each soft sound pulled at his instincts to protect. He could hear the faint rustle of leaves behind him, but he focused solely on Mary, determined to ensure her safety. After a few minutes of careful pursuit, he watched as Mary paused to catch her breath in a small clearing. Her face was etched with worry, and he could see her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the reins. It was evident that she was pushing herself hard, both physically and emotionally. Jack's heart went out to her. This brave woman was fighting against fear while trying to find a new beginning. With each step he took closer to her direction, Jack's mind swirled with thoughts of how he could help. He wasn't sure what would come next, but he felt an undeniable pull to step into her world and offer support in any way he could. The wilderness had tested him many times before, but today it was leading him to a purpose greater than his solitary existence, protecting this courageous widow on her desperate journey. As dusk settled over the forest, Mary and Daisy continued along a narrow trail, the sound of hooves softly crunching on the gravel beneath them. The air was thick with tension. Every rustle of leaves sent a jolt of fear through her. Suddenly, a distant shout broke the stillness, sending her heart racing. It was unmistakable, the voices of the outlaws she had been fleeing from. Mary's instincts kicked in. She quickly scanned the area for a safe hiding place. There was no time to waste. Spotting a thicket of underbrush off the side of the trail, she urged Daisy toward it, hoping to conceal herself from view. As they pressed into the brush, Mary held her breath, praying that their dark brown coats would blend into the natural shadows of the forest. Just moments later, 3 rough-looking men on horseback trotted down the path, their eyes scanning the surroundings sharply. Mary could see them clearly now, grimy faces etched with a mix of cruelty and greed. The group halted not far from her hiding spot, discussing their next move in low, menacing tones. "Did you see where that widow went?" one outlaw asked, his voice dripping with malice. "She couldn't have gotten far with that nag of hers." Mary's heart pounded dangerously loud in her ears as she felt Daisy tremble beneath her. She knew they were close enough to hear if she or Daisy made even the slightest sound. "Let's split up and search this area," another suggested, and Mary's stomach dropped at the thought of being discovered. Her mind raced as she considered her options. There had to be a way to outsmart them. With quick thinking, Mary recalled how she had seen some large rocks not far off when they entered this part of the trail. If she could create a diversion by drawing their attention away from Daisy while leading them toward those rocks, maybe she could make a break for it. As one outlaw moved closer to investigate, Mary gripped Daisy's reins tightly and whispered soothing words to keep her calm. Summoning every ounce of courage, she picked up a small stone nearby and threw it in the opposite direction with all her strength. The loud clatter startled both horses and men alike, drawing their attention away from her hiding spot. Taking advantage of their distraction, Mary quickly maneuvered Daisy deeper into the brush while urging her forward quietly. The outlaws cursed as they turned toward the noise but found nothing but an empty space where they expected to find easy prey. Meanwhile, adrenaline surged through Mary as she guided Daisy away from danger, racing against time as their shouts echoed behind them. Though still very much in peril, Mary's cleverness had bought her precious moments, and in those moments lay hope for survival against overwhelming odds. As Mary and Daisy slipped away from the outlaws, Jack remained hidden nearby, keenly aware of the danger lurking just moments away. With determination fueled by a sense of responsibility, he decided it was time to confront the men who threatened the brave widow he had come to admire. Jack moved quietly through the underbrush, his instincts guiding him as he positioned himself on a ridge overlooking the trail. From this vantage point, he could see the outlaws scrambling in confusion after Mary's clever distraction. They were still searching for any signs of her while arguing amongst themselves about which direction they should take next. Taking a deep breath, Jack formulated a plan that would capitalize on his knowledge of the land. The terrain around them was dotted with rocks and fallen trees, perfect for ambush. He knew these woods like the back of his hand and decided to use that advantage against the gang. With silent agility, Jack made his way down the slope and headed toward an area where one of the outlaws stood alone, scanning the thickets for movement. In a swift motion, Jack hurled a rock from behind a cluster of boulders, sending it tumbling loudly down a narrow path to their right. The noise startled the outlaw, drawing his attention away from where Mary had escaped. When a second outlaw heard the commotion and hurried to investigate, Jack knew it was time to strike. He lunged from his hiding spot and tackled the unsuspecting man to the ground, pinning him with surprising strength. The outlaw gasped in shock, struggling to shake off Jack's grip as they wrestled in the dirt. Meanwhile, the remaining outlaws heard their companions' cries and rushed back. But Jack was quick. He used his surroundings expertly, dodging between trees and using low branches to trap them in their advance. His deep knowledge of each twist and turn of this land allowed him to remain agile. The confrontation escalated as Jack faced two more outlaws at once. Their crude threats echoed in the air, but Jack held firm. With swift movements honed by years of living off the land, he managed to disarm one of them and push him away with a forceful shove that sent him tumbling backward. The other outlaw charged at Jack with rage in his eyes. Instead of meeting force with force, Jack sidestepped quickly and let him crash into a tree. Struggling to maintain their footing on uneven ground, Jack capitalized on their momentary disorientation. In mere moments, he had turned what began as an overwhelming confrontation into a swift victory framed by nature itself. The remaining outlaws fled in fear, whispering frantic warnings to one another as they retreated into the woods. Breathless but relieved, Jack turned back toward Mary's direction. He knew she was still somewhere nearby, still vulnerable, and it was time for him to reunite with her and ensure she remained safe from harm's way. As the tension began to dissolve in the wake of Jack's brave confrontation with the outlaws, he quickly rejoined Mary, who was still trembling with fear and relief. The forest was now silent, save for the soft sounds of the gentle breeze rustling through the leaves. "Are you okay?" Jack asked, concern etched on his rugged features as he approached her. Mary nodded, catching her breath but unable to hide the gratitude shining in her eyes. "I don't know what I would have done without you," she replied, her voice shaky but filled with newfound strength. The bond between them was beginning to form in that moment, two souls united against a common threat. Jack looked at her with admiration. "You held your own back there." That diversion you created was clever. He could see that beneath her fear lay a resilient spirit, one that mirrored his own journey through hardship and survival. With a quick glance toward where the outlaws had fled, Jack knew they needed to move quickly to ensure their safety. "Let's find a secure place to camp for the night," he suggested. "The danger isn't over yet." Mary agreed, feeling a sense of comfort in having Jack by her side. As they made their way deeper into the forest, she felt lighter knowing that she wasn't alone anymore. Together they navigated the terrain, exchanging ideas about where to set up camp and sharing stories of their pasts. Jack shared tales from his life as a mountain man, the lessons learned from living off the land and surviving on his own. Mary listened intently, inspired by his bravery and resourcefulness. In return, she told him about Thomas and her memories of their life together, which sparked laughter among them even amidst their dire circumstances. As dusk settled around them, they found an open clearing surrounded by towering trees that offered natural protection. They worked together to set up a small fire for warmth and light while keeping an eye on their surroundings. "Thank you for saving me," Mary said softly as they sat near the flickering flames. "It's not just my life you protected, it feels like you've given me hope again." Jack smiled genuinely at her words, recognizing that this journey had intertwined their fates more than he ever expected it would. "We're in this together now," he assured her, sensing this newfound partnership would carry them through whatever lay ahead. As darkness enveloped them and stars twinkled brightly above, an unspoken understanding passed between them. They were no longer alone in their struggles. Together they would face whatever challenges awaited them in this wild world, a bond forged through adversity and mutual support as they sought safety and a brighter future ahead. After days of navigating through the wilderness, Mary and Jack finally emerged from the dense trees to see a small settlement nestled in a valley below. The sight filled Mary with a mix of hope and anxiety. This place, with its wooden houses and the gentle glow of lanterns flickering in the late afternoon light, looked like a sanctuary from the chaos that had haunted her. "Is that a safe place?" she asked Jack, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack nodded, his eyes scanning the perimeter. "It looks peaceful enough, but we should stay cautious. Let's approach slowly." As they made their way down the rocky path towards the settlement, Mary felt a sense of possibility blossom within her. The thought of being among people again, of feeling safe, was almost overwhelming. With Jack at her side, she felt a newfound strength, a determination to reclaim the life that had been so abruptly taken from her. When they reached the town square, the atmosphere was warm and inviting. The townsfolk went about their evening routines, greeting one another with laughter and friendly banter. It was a sight she hadn't seen for what felt like ages, and it wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. Mary dismounted Daisy and glanced up at Jack, who watched her with a protective gaze. "I think I want to settle here," she said decisively. Jack smiled warmly. "I believe you will be safe here. You fought hard to get to this moment." They approached a small inn where a kind-looking woman emerged from inside, wiping her hands on her apron. Her welcoming smile immediately put Mary at ease. "Well now, you look like you've had quite the journey. Come in for a warm meal and rest your weary bones." Mary's heart swelled with gratitude as she stepped inside the inn, allowing herself to breathe deeply for the first time in days. Later that evening, sitting by the inn's cozy fire with Jack beside her, Mary reflected on how far she had come. "Thank you for everything," she said softly, looking into his eyes. "I truly don't know what I would have done without you." Jack shrugged modestly but replied with sincerity, "You're stronger than you realize, Mary. I've seen it through our journey together." In that quiet moment, surrounded by warmth and safety, they forged an unspoken promise: they would face whatever came next together. With each shared smile and story exchanged by the firelight, Mary felt herself reawakening. Hope filled her heart as she began to envision a new life, one that honored Thomas's memory while allowing her to find peace at last. As sleep overcame them that night in the comforting embrace of safety, Mary knew that she was finally on the path to rebuilding her life, more resilient than ever with Jack by her side as both protector and friend.